Hi there, Greg Van Beek. This is Nancy O'Dell, and I wanted to say congratulations on 500 episodes of Nostalgia Radio Time. That is awesome. And you're also celebrating 10 years. I mean, that's quite the anniversary. Very impressive, Greg. I love me some oldies but goodies.
Once I had a secret love. Ha, I'm Lori Morgan, and if you love pop standards as much as I do, you'll want to tune in each week to Nostalgia Radio Time, hosted by my friend Greg Van Beek.
Go, Joe, go!
Hi everyone, this is Katie Couric, and I want to welcome you to one of my favorite programs, Nostalgia Radio Time, hosted by my friend Greg Van Beek.
Greetings and welcome to program number 699 of Nostalgia Radio Time. On this week's program, I've got a very special guest making a return appearance on Nostalgia Radio Time. It's TCM host Alicia Malone. She's got a brand new book out all about TCM Imports. So I'm very excited to welcome her back to the program.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's nice to talk to you again.
Hopefully you've recovered from the whirlwind of activities surrounding the TCM Film Festival a few weeks back.
Oh my gosh, just about. I think I'm still catching up on sleep. It really was a whirlwind.
What was one of the main highlights of that event for you?
I really enjoyed getting to introduce Babe. It's the 30th anniversary of that film this year, and I talked to James Cromwell, who played Farmer Hoggett. And Babe was a film that Australians have always been very proud of because it was shot in Australia with an Australian director. And watching it again in the lead up to doing the interview, it really still holds up. It has the special effects still look good after all these years. It's a very touching story. You really give yourself into believing that these animals are talking. And James Cromwell was great because he told wonderful stories about shooting the film, and he seems to have great affection for it.
Well, it always sounds like so much fun each year, and it's definitely something on my bucket list to do.
Yes.
Well, we last spoke in 2022 when your book Girls on Film, Lessons from a Life of Watching Women in Movies came out. Now you've got a beautiful new book recently released titled TCM Imports, Timeless Favorites and Hidden Gems of World Cinema.
Yes, that's right. I mean, after I wrote my last book, I remember saying to many people that I wasn't going to write another book again because it is a tough enterprise, but I was approached by Running Press, who work with TCM on the TCM library, and I had always secretly hoped that one day I would have my name on a TCM book. So they approached me about writing a book and asked what I'd be interested in doing, and because I host the TCM Imports franchise on TCM, the late night show on Sunday nights, that's dedicated to international cinema, I suggested that I write a book about foreign films. But then, of course, that was approved, but then the difficult part was deciding how to structure the book, because it's a very big subject.
And if my count is correct, this is your fourth published book.
Yeah, that's right. Fourth book.
That in itself is an amazing feat, so congratulations on that accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, as you mentioned, this book is part of a series of books sanctioned by Turner Classic Movies and takes the reader on a world tour of international films with you as our tour guide.
Yeah, I was hoping to write a book that would be very accessible to people, especially if TCM fans are very, well-versed already in the world of classic films, but maybe not so much in foreign films. A book that could invite people in to want to watch films. So I was trying to figure out how to structure the book, how to make it, limit it to around 50 films, because that's what I could feasibly write within the time frame and seemed like a good amount for people to be able to explore but not be overwhelmed by. And I started thinking about how I like to watch movies, and I thought, I really like to watch them seasonally, which is also how we program TCM too, like Christmas films at the end of the year and scary films around Halloween and summer films in summer, etc. So that's what I decided to do, and hopefully that's a very accessible way of looking at this big subject.
And I would agree that the world of international cinema can feel daunting to approach for newcomers because, as you mentioned, there's simply so much of it to choose from. But you handpicked, like you say, 50 or 52 representative films, one really for each week of the year, which I love. But then you took it a step further by grouping them into which films are best to watch during winter, spring, summer, or fall. So you've made the viewing choices so easy, and you've basically done everything but make the popcorn.
That's what I hope. I hope you can put this book on your coffee table and pick it up anytime you're stuck on something that you don't know what to watch. You can just pick it up, open up a page, and find something interesting.
So you have been hosting TCM Imports each week late Sunday nights for how many years now?
I started on TCM itself in 2018, and I think it was at the beginning of 2019 that I asked Ben Mankiewicz, who used to host TCM Imports, whether I could take over that show, and thankfully he said yes. So it has been about 6 years now.
Admittedly, I DVR the films each week because I should be fast asleep at 2 a.m., but I do watch them and have enjoyed a great deal of them. Have you figured out just how many of these 52 films you've introduced?
I haven't figured out the exact number, but I would say the majority have played on TCM Imports. And what I love about hosting that show is that I'm always discovering new films myself that I've never seen. So a lot of them we had already played on Imports, which helped when it came to research. I had existing research materials and some notes that I had taken in order to write my scripts for TCM Imports on TCM itself. So a lot of them came from that, but then I tried to push myself a little bit further and include films that I hadn't seen before, asked a lot of friends, knowledgeable cinephiles, and even the programmer for TCM Imports for some input to make sure that I could widen my scope a little bit bigger and go out of my comfort zone.
I remember you telling me last time we spoke that you write all of your own introductions to the films you host on TCM, so are the descriptions for each film in the book sort of an expanded version of the introductions and recaps we see on TV each Sunday?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the introductions that I write for television are about 500 words a piece, I would say, and this time for the book I wrote about 1,500 words on each film, but very much the approach is the same, looking at the research materials, figuring out what the story was that I wanted to tell, the overarching story, whether it's about the filmmaker's journey or it's about the making of the film or it's about what was happening in the country at that time, historically or politically. And I always try to look for a hook, something interesting as a way to get into the story and then out of the story, and treat both the entries in the book and the intros on TCM as telling a story with a beginning, middle, and end. So it is an expanded version, hopefully giving you all the same great facts and trivia and context that we give on the channel.
It really is an amazing book, not just in the scope of the films covered, but in the quality of the publication itself. It's printed on glossy paper and lavishly illustrated with so many beautiful, full-page photos from the films. It really has an elegant feel about it.
Yeah, it does, and that's part of the reason I was so excited to do a book for the TCM library, because they do create beautiful-looking books, and it was exciting to get to use photographs, which I couldn't do in my previous books. Now we have the rights to several photographs, so being able to choose those and work with the designer about the placement, the colors to use in the book, the cover of the book. I mean, that was all such a joy. And then especially getting to see it and hold it and feel that it's a real thing and not just a Word document on my computer was very exciting.
I like to think of it as part research guide, part viewing guide, and part coffee table book, too.
I like that. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going for, so thank you.
Well, another thing I love are the little viewing suggestions you put under the titles, like for the film Daisies, you wrote, "To watch when you feel like causing a ruckus," or for Lady Snowblood, "To watch when you're thirsting for revenge," or I suppose if you watch them both back to back, you are probably having a day when you're ready to unleash your own personal red fury. I had to get that nickname in here someplace.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a nickname that I got back in the podcasting days of like 2014, 2013, around then. But yeah, I wanted to put a little mood to each of the films. So sometimes if you don't just want to watch by seasons, but you're in a particular mood, you can look through the book and see if there is something that suits your mood. But a lot of them are also just fun and tongue-in-cheek a little bit, give you an idea of what the film might be like.
That's great. Well, what's especially refreshing is international films cover all the different genres of films we've come to know in America, and as an easy example would be the oldest film in the book, 1927's German science fiction masterpiece, Metropolis. Indeed, this film would not only fit in as part of TCM Imports, but also a few hours earlier on TCM's Silent Sunday Nights with Jacqueline Stewart.
Absolutely, and I wanted to make sure I included movies from all different eras of filmmaking. I think the the newest film in the book is Parasite from 2018. So it spans a lot of different decades. I love Metropolis. I mean, that's a film that many people have heard of. A lot of people have seen snippets of, but some people haven't actually seen from start to finish. But just a beautiful film, and shows that silent films are definitely not boring, that they're innovative, and they've also inspired a lot of films that came after them.
And I remember last year you appeared on Noir Alley with Eddie Muller with La Deux Ju M Souf, a French noir film, which I'm sure I've bungled the title on, but you know the one I mean.
Yes. I was going to say, yeah, that was really fun to get to go and visit Eddie in the bar where he shoots, and I was grateful that he wanted to have me on to talk about a French film noir. And I love French film noir. There's a couple in the book. It's funny too, because in my book I really tried to span many different countries, but I discovered that the majority of films are actually from France or made in France, even if they're, a co-production with another country. I think France has just been such a powerhouse in world cinema.
Yes, and speaking of Jacqueline and Eddie and your work at TCM, it seems there's a great camaraderie among all of the hosts, including Dave Karger, Ben Mankiewicz, and yourself. That was very apparent when you were all together hosting films on New Year's Eve last year. You're all so good at what you do and really enhance the viewing of any film that you introduce.
Yeah, that's so much fun. I mean, we don't get to be with each other that often. Sometimes we'll do things separately, like me and Eddie, or sometimes, Dave and Eddie will appear together, but we rarely get a chance for us all five to sit down. And I enjoyed the New Year's Eve because it really showed how each of us have our own different sensibilities, the different types of films that we love. Somehow we all get along, even though we have such distinct personalities. We do get to see each other at the film festival every year and at the cruise, but it is pretty much where we see each other at the beginning and the end, the opening night party, the closing night party, and then in between we're like ships in the night because we have different schedules from each other. But I really love working with all my co-hosts, and any chance I get to sit down with them and talk about movies, I feel grateful for.
And in addition to TCM Imports, you introduce the films throughout the afternoon and early evenings on Sunday, and then again on Tuesday evenings.
That's right, yeah. Tuesday evenings I'm on, and that's when we usually have different spotlights or with different themes. With birthdays, we're celebrating Stars of the Month. And then Sunday is really eclectic. It's just a real mix of films. It's fun to get to host such a wide range of genres on that day. And then, as we mentioned, very late Sunday night is TCM Imports.
Definitely can't forget that one. I especially enjoyed the two shows you did recently with Marty Stewart on the Tuesday evenings. I love that such a legendary name in country music is also a fan of TCM.
I know. This has been so great, is discovering all of these people who are TCM fans, who work in all different industries, not only filmmakers, but people like Marty Stewart. I mean, country music legend, and he watches TCM all the time. He has it on in his bus when he's touring, and he says it makes him feel less alone when he's out on the road. And so he always loves to come on TCM, and I've become friends with him over the years, and I love that he gets to talk about music and educate me on country music, and then I get to talk to him about movies and sort of give some more behind the scenes of some of the films that we co-host together.
Speaking of behind the scenes, I know my listeners would love to hear a little behind the scenes how you do your introductions. These are filmed in Atlanta, Georgia?
That's right. We film in Atlanta, Georgia, and me and Dave both film there every 2 months. So we go down to Atlanta every 2 months. He usually does 2 days before me, and then I do 2 days. 2 days worth of filming, which covers 2 months worth of introductions on the channel. So there's a lot of costume changes, makeup changes, a lot of back and forth. Wow. And then when I get home, then I start again. Then I start writing and researching and watching the next 2 months worth of movies. And we work in advance. So right now I'm writing the scripts for July and August, which I'll shoot in June. And then as soon as I'm back from that shoot, I'll start on September and October. And I think it would be really interesting to tell our viewers somehow at some point how many hours, I wonder if we could figure it out, goes into each introduction. Because so many people work on every single intro on TCM, and they're only on once, and then they're not on again. So there's a lot of time and effort spent on creating these introductions that are on air just for 1 minute 30 to 2 minutes, and then they're gone. But I love the fact that everyone work so hard to make sure that we deliver some interesting information and get viewers excited for the film they're about to watch.
That is absolutely astounding. What an incredible amount of filming. How many intros and outros does that average out to be for each day of filming?
I do about 35 intros per day, so it's usually around 70 intros and outros, 70 intros, 70 outros in total per shoot, and so that's how much I write as well when I get home. I write 70 intros, 70 outros, yeah.
Those must be some long days.
Yeah, I know, and it's funny because it's just me, right? So the 2 days are just shooting my intros, so I am standing and talking for about 8 hours consecutively for 2 days, and then I have a very quiet life where I live in a small town in New England and I don't talk to anyone for like 2 months, and then so it's a good balance.
That is amazing. How do you keep your energy up and make it look so smooth and polished and effortless?
Yeah, it's hard because you cannot have an off day if you're feeling unwell. Some days I've had migraines and just have to battle through knowing that it's going to be on the channel for 2 months, so your bad day will last for 2 months. So, I mean, it's definitely lots of coffee, but the crew is so lovely and everyone's there to make you look the best you can and make sure every intro is done to the best of its ability, so you feel really supported when you're there. And I also just try to put myself in the mind of every single film. I try to, every time we start an intro and outro, I try to think, okay, the mood of the film, I remember watching it, the bits I liked in it, and especially with the outros, how the movie ended, because I don't want, especially with imports, there can be some, rather sad endings. I don't want to come on screen straight afterwards smiling. So I try to put myself in the mood of the film, and that helps. That helps to keep it feel fresh every single intro.
Sure. Well, now I understand completely why you're seen seated on a couch for some of your introductions.
I know.
That's probably towards the end of the day.
Yeah, it is at the end of the day. And, I used to have to wear high heels because they used to have the crane shot that would come from high and then come into us. And that was painful to wear heels for that long. Now you don't see my feet. So I think it's shown briefly in one of the TCM Imports promos that I'm usually wearing slippers. So I try to be as comfortable as I can on my feet because you don't see them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are those filmed with a green screen, or do they actually have that elaborate set we see behind you?
They have that elaborate set, and it's so detailed, and it's amazing to see it in person. There's so many little interesting trinkets and books and little Easter eggs hidden around the place. They just use some of the angles, but I feel like there's so much more that we could explore there. I'm always asking to that if that fireplace will work. We can have that crackling in the background, but I think that's a hazard.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
How much of the 2 months in between filmings do you spend on average writing your introductions?
I probably spend about an hour per introduction, intro and outro writing, but I'll also watch the film. I mean, some films like Casablanca, I've seen a lot of times. I generally don't have to rewatch them, but I will if it's been a long, long time since I've seen the film. But there are always at least half the movies that I either haven't seen or haven't seen for a long time. So I'll watch those and then do the research and writing of the introduction. So I would say about 3 hours in total per intro and outro that I spend.
Well, it's obviously a labor of love, though, because you're such a good writer.
Thank you.
And it shows through in everything you did in the book and everything you're doing on television. Do you have a hand in choosing the films each month, or does TCM provide you with a list?
TCM provides us with a list, but I am lucky that Hemrani Diaz, who is the programmer for TCM Imports, she will send me the list of what she's thinking for the rest of the year. And I will go through it and give my suggestions, but she does a great job programming it. But then sometimes we can pitch ideas ourselves. So coming this summer, I pitched an idea to do a romance film every Sunday because I love romantic comedies and romantic dramas. And so for those, I handpicked them and went back and forth with programming to curate the list of films that I would show throughout summer.
I know you mentioned that you're leading a quiet life away from the hustle and bustle of LA over on the East Coast, so that has to be a welcome change of pace for you.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think it gives me such a good balance because I am really just an introvert at heart. I love staying at home and watching movies, even though I have quite an extroverted public-facing job. But it's really nice to be able to switch off, to be able to walk my dogs in the forest and just be surrounded by nature. I mean, there's so much beauty everywhere around me where I live. And I also help out at a local movie theater. I've been helping with the programming, which has been really fun to just think about what I would like to watch and also think about how to introduce classic films to an audience that aren't as, involved in classic film as the TCM audience is. So that's been really rewarding to see people show up for those screenings. And it feels like a bit of community service as well because I get to be involved with the local community, which is very rewarding.
Do you still find time to travel back to Australia on occasion to visit friends and relatives?
I try to. It's such a long trip and you need, a good amount of time to spend there. But I went in 2023 and so I'm due for another trip, maybe not this year, but definitely next year to see all my family and friends because they're still all over there. But I keep trying to convince them to come out and see me over here.
I'm sure growing up there you were exposed to so many more international films that weren't widely seen in America. Can you remember the first film that you saw in a movie theater?
I can. That's the interesting thing about Australia is that we have a real mix of American content and British content, both on television and in film theaters. And we also have a lot of international cinema that plays in our theaters. But the first film I ever saw, it's actually also the first memory that I have of my life, and that was seeing The Never-Ending Story in a movie theater when I was 3 years old. And I didn't last long because I love horses, and you might remember in that film, the horse dies in the swamp of sadness, gets sucked under the mud, and I just started screaming because I didn't quite realize that it was pretend. I thought a horse was really dying, and so my mom had to take me and my sisters out of the theater, and my sisters were very annoyed that they couldn't see the end of the movie because I was in tears. But definitely a visceral experience I will never forget.
Well, I don't remember my first movie-going experience to be quite that traumatic, but I do remember the first film I saw was Star Wars in 1977.
Wow, yeah, I never got to see Star Wars in a movie theater at that time, but that's a good answer. I mean, I think that movie, we just showed Empire Strikes Back at the opening night of the film festival, and those movies just loom large in people's minds, and it was so formative for many people growing up.
Yeah, I remember seeing all those in the theater, Empire Strikes Back, and
wow.
Was that the third one, I think? Then there was one in between, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think so. I've lost track now. There's so many.
Yeah, I have too. It's been so many years.
Okay, well, I have one last question for you, and this one may be a tough one, but I know you've said that the 1960 Billy Wilder film, The Apartment, is your all-time favorite. So tying this in with your new book, have you found any foreign film that has the same ingredients that makes The Apartment so endearing?
Well, yes, I do have an answer for this because it's a movie that Billy Wilder was inspired by when he wrote The Apartment, and that is Brief Encounter, David Lean's film, a British film. And it's a beautiful, tragic love story about two married people married to other people. They fall in love, but they can't do anything about it. It's full of longing and sadness, but also it's so richly told and compelling. It's a movie I love to show people who have never seen it before because it quickly becomes one of their favorites. But Billy Wilder watched that film, and there is a scene in Brief Encounter where the married couple go to a friend's apartment, and he started wondering, like, who was that guy that lends the apartment out to a married couple to have an affair inside? And so that's how he started to write The Apartment.
Well, I didn't stump you. I thought for sure that one would have been a tough one for you, but you were prepared.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you again, Alicia. Thanks so much for being so generous with your time. And I want to congratulate you again on the wonderful new book, TCM Imports, Timeless Favorites and Hidden Gems of World Cinema.
Thank you, Greg. It's always so nice to talk to you.
I can highly recommend the book, and I urge each of my listeners to pick up a copy and explore the wonderful world of international cinema.
Thank you.
Always an absolute delight to speak with Alicia, and hope you'll pick up a copy of her book.
Go, Joe, go!
And once again, it's time to close up shop for another week of Nostalgia Radio Time. I'm Greg Van Beek. Thank you for listening, and hope you'll join me again next week for more music and memories of the greatest generation. Feel free to email me with any questions about the program, any comments you have about the interview with Alicia, or any requests you'd like to make for songs or old-time radio shows. Send them all to nostalgiaradiotime@yahoo.com. And while you're online, check us out on Facebook and X. And if you happen to have an interest in antique radios, looking to acquire one, or maybe just like to look at pictures of them, check out my website at radioattic.com/Van Beek for all your antique radio needs. So until we meet again next week, I'm Greg Van Beek saying so long for now.